Today, I would like to share with you 5 recipes to master Ember that I've put together for the past year and a half. You can follow my slides on slides.com/rubycalling/ember-chef, and for the live version, meaning seeing me clicking, it's /live. I've been building monolithic Ruby on Rails application for 8 years before starting learning Ember. At that time, I was working on the API and the UI using the same framework. But I found myself quite limited with the front end, and I was spending a lot of time trying to make things work. So I wanted to experiment with the new emerging front-end frameworks, and in my new job, it happens to be React. Not kidding. It happens to be Ember. I picked up my first Ember ticket in October 2015. It was about building a link with an anchor tag. And as you might guess, things get a bit more complex after. I started gathering my thoughts on mastering Ember because I wanted to ensure that I got the fundamentals to push my skills to the next level. A little bit about myself. I'm Laura Lebovic. I live in Dalston, East London, as you can tell by my accent. You can find me on Twitter at Laura Lebovic and on GitHub at RubyCalling. I was born outside London, actually. 2 hours ride by train in a town called Paris in France. So when I'm not in front of my computer, I do enjoy boxing. And you can find me on several music festivals in summery Europe. And the next one will be in Portugal, Lisbon. I do love traveling, and I spend some time as well exploring Asia and even live in China for a while. Today, I'm really happy to finally be exploring the West Coast, and particularly Portland. So thank you for having me in your amazing city. I would like to thank Show My Homework, the company I work for, and especially Naimish Gohil, his CEO, for supporting open source and giving us the chance to use awesome technologies. At Show My Homework, we are building an awesome application to help teachers create quality homework and provide meaningful learning experiences for students. 1 in 3 schools in the UK are already using our software that is mainly based on Ember and Ruby. So now let's have a look at my cookbook, The Art of Mastering Ember, the 5 key strands. And here are the recipes that we will cover today. Let's dive straight into the first one, which in my opinion is one of the most important ones, which is organizing your own route. So today we're going to build a platform to share food recipes online. And when you arrive on the homepage, you have the list of all the recipes. And to access this page, you need to be authenticated. And what we want to do is when a user clicks on the recipes, it can display the list of ingredients without leaving the homepage. So you can just browse around and see if you have all the ingredients needed for one recipe in your fridge tonight. So let's have a look at how we build this pop-up with the ingredients. A way to do that would be to have your recipes destined under authenticated folder, because as I said, you need to be logged in to see the recipes. And in your components, you use a model, the ingredients model, which is for the pop-up. So now, let's have a look at the template. In the template, we render a list of recipes, each li, with an action view ingredients. And when show ingredients is true, so if show ingredients, if the computed property is true, then you can see the pop-up. We pass the recipe's ingredient to the component, along with the show ingredient value. In the controller, we have this computed property ingredients that we compute over the selected recipes, the one we click on. And we return the ingredients for the selected recipe. The action view ingredients set the selected recipes, and then toggle the property show ingredients so you can see or not the pop-up. And then in our component, the model, we have a close action that toggle the property show ingredients to true or false to close or not the pop-up. But wait, what happens when we want to share our ingredient list? So the thing is, if you want to share this list directly to a friend, because you're probably lazy and don't want to go to the shop doing your own grocery shopping, how do we do that? Because basically, the pop-up is activated on a computed property, true or false. So it will not be activated for the user that receives the link, right? So how we make things work? A way to do that is to have a dedicated route. So you have a dedicated URL. So here you can see underneath recipes inside this folder, now we have an ingredient folder. We have the controller, the route, and the template. And now, if we have a closer look at the template, we can see that we have this direct link to the ingredients. So it will be always activated. In the ingredients template now, we have the model that displays a pop-up with a list of ingredients. So we're good to go, right? Here, if we have a look at our HTML markup, what do we observe? Is that the ingredient pop-up is actually displayed right in the middle of the HTML markup. And this is not really what we want, because we might be struggling with CSS. Is the pop-up is position absolute, it might be the overflow won't be, how do you say, not going well if the wrapper is shrinking or something like that. So what we want to do is display the pop-up right at the root, the top, or the bottom of our application template. So let's master it. Here you can see in your app folder you have this handy application.hbs file. It is where we display the outlet, meaning your whole application. And what we want to do is display the model, the pop-up, just after this outlet. Here we use liquid outlet. It's for liquid fire, but it basically behaves like a regular outlet. It allows us to have a nice sliding animation. So how we do that? How do we inject this outlet into the main template.hbs? We use a handy hook in our ingredient routes named the render template. And we just use this render outlet model into application. And we master it. Are you ready, guys, for the second recipe? So now we're going to see the importance of integration tests. So now what we want to do is that we want to reuse a component which will display, help us display the list of recipes as a grid on the home page. And probably what we want to do is display a list of recipes as a list and not a grid for the dessert page. So how do we want to achieve that? It's basically to build a component, right? And here we have our template for the home page, index.template.hbs, where we loop through the model, which here is a collection of all the recipes, and we render the recipe entry component. And basically, it's pretty much the same for the dessert components, the component we call in dessert templates, sorry. And here the model is a collection of dessert and not of all the recipes. So we loop through all of them, and we display recipe entry. So what our component looks like is basically a chunk of HTML that displays a photo, title, author, date, and rating. And the way we test that is probably with an acceptance test. Here, we test the index page, and we test that we actually go to this page, recipes, and then that all our recipes are displayed as expected. And then we pick this first recipe, and we check that the description, the title, and the rating are rendered as expected. A bit tricky, because every time you have to pick the first one. And then if you look at the acceptance test for dessert, it's pretty much the same. And to be honest, we don't like duplication, don't we? So let's master it. A way to do that will be to keep it really simple in our acceptance test and only test the flow. Meaning that here we only test that we go to this URL, that slash recipes, and that we have all the recipes we are expecting. And then, kind of the same for the dessert test page. Now, in our integration test, what is nice is that you can test everything you want, as much as you want. The photo, title, author, date, rating. So what does that mean? Let's sum it. Acceptance tests are much more expensive. Why? Because of this flow, you need to build your whole application, which is not needed in your integration test because it's outside of the context of an application. So integration tests are much faster. And because you might reuse a component, having a strong integration test instead of testing this component every time in acceptance test, make it more reusable. And integration tests make it possible to do what every developer loves, TDD. And here we master it, right? And as I always say at work, a good test tells a story, and particularly with integration tests. So you can test the photo, title, author, date, rating, and just by reading it, you actually build kind of a documentation. So now let's go to our third recipe. Mock your ideal payload. This is something that a lot of us front-end developers struggle with, is that we probably settle a lot with something that is not perfect, talking about payload response from the server, because the feedback loop with the backend is sometimes really annoying. And if your team is distributed in different time zones, it can lead to, it will do. So let's take an example. Here, we want to display our recipes again on the home page. And as you can see here, we have the pagination, 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 is highlighted, sorry. And here we have the arrow to go to the next collection to the next list of recipes. So what does the backend respond? If we don't tell them anything, they will nicely give us the list of recipes and some metadata here. So they will give us a total count. There's 126 recipes, the limit 10, and the offset 20. Why? Because probably they do a request to the database with this limit and offset. So it's pretty handy for them to respond with that to the front end. But do we really need and use that easily? Not really, to be honest. Because if you want to know the total number of pages, you have to do total count divided by limit that will round up, give you 13 pages. So you can build your pagination with this number. And then, in order to highlight, you remember the 3. you need the current page. And this is with total pages minus total count minus offset divided by limit. Ta-da! Page 3. And the UI don't really like to do that kind of calculation if it can be handled by the backend, right? So let's make it work. And by making it work, I mean reducing the feedback loop with the API, because it's easier for the backend to adapt to the frontend and not the other way around. And include the calculated value for us, so we don't have to do that in the UI. So if we request that to the backend, being really specific, here's what we can have, and simpler and easier for us to work around that. So what does that mean? Here, in metadata, we only receive total pages, 25, and page number 3. So we can highlight this page 3. And we're good to go. But we can master it. How? Using JSON API. Why? I don't know if you guys remember, but on the bottom right of the page, there was this arrow, and we have no idea how to activate this arrow to go to the next collection of recipes. And with JSON API, what is really handy is here, at the bottom, you have the links. So you know what is this page itself, first, prev, next, and last. And what is really handy as well is that the backend answers us with the right API call, so we don't have to build that in the front end as well. So we master it. Now let's jump to our fourth recipes. Everyone is still ready? Which is focus on the user experience. So here, what we want to do is we want to have a look at our recipes, and probably there's one we are not really happy with it. It's our own recipes, not the recipes from someone else. And we probably want to delete one of them. So how does it work? You click on one of them, probably a trash can, and then you have this nice confirmation pop-up that asks you to delete. So you click on it, and then you are redirected to the list of recipes. But what happens if, when you are redirected to the list of recipes, you click back? Then you will see this pop-up again, but the data has been destroyed, right? So it's not here anymore. So you probably will have an error page. So let's be honest. Sometimes we do not anticipate that the user click on the browser back button, so we don't really care about that, but we should. So let's make it work. How? So here, we fetch the model, and we check in the redirect hook in the delete route. If the model, here we have a soft delete, so we have the value is deleted, and if is deleted is true, then we redirect the user, and he will never see this pop-up. It's good, right? But we can master it. And how do we do that? How do we actually completely prevent the user to try to fetch this page, this route? We do that in the delete recipe action, meaning that once you destroy the record, you actually tweak a bit the browser history, saying I delete the previous route in the browser history and I replace with my new route. And here we pass in the authenticated.recipes, meaning that the user will always be redirected to authenticated recipes if you click on the back button and not on this pop-up anymore. So we master it. There's another example. Search field and characters added to the URL. So here we want to search recipes that contain chocolate. Who doesn't like chocolate? So let's say we do debounce, but it's our grandmother who is using the website, and she might type one letter at a time with a slow type, and even if we debounce, it doesn't really work, right? And she might be doing like this. Yeah, cool. But again, if she hit the back button, she will go through each search she have queried. The user has actually no idea what is going on because only the URL changed, but not the page, right? Not really nice, not really user-friendly. So let's master it. Here, in our authenticated index route, what we do is we have the search parameters, and as you know, when we query, we can do refresh model true, but we can as well use this handy method replace, and it will replace the last search with the current search. So the last search will be chocolate, and it will replace the last one. So every time she will hit the back button, she will be actually landing on a perfect page, meaning either the list of recipes or something she has searched way before. We master it. Now, let's jump into our last and not least fifth recipe. Expect the unexpected. So the Ember framework makes it really easy, very easy to display a loading page and an error page. So use it. When we try to access a route with a slow model, meaning that the backend is responding slowly to the UI, yeah, it happens sometimes, Ember will try to display a loading page. And it will start by searching the following hierarchy. So recipes-loading, recipes.loading, then it will go a bit up in the folder, authenticated.loading or authenticated-loading, and then at the very top of our application, loading or application-loading. So in our case, what we can use is we have our recipes and we can have a loading HBS template nesting in there. Here. So here is a template, and the user now knows that if something happened with the backend, it's slow to respond. You know that the recipes are loading. Ta-da! So we're good to go. So now, let's talk about error pages. We do have access to a nice feature, which is a catch-all. This route catch-all with a pass wildcard. So every time there is a non-found route, it will go into that catch-all. It's a generic 404 page. And we have a generic template page for that 404. This is good, right? And in the same way we have loading pages, there's exactly the same pattern for error pages. So if for some reason the backend might happen as well, and not respond slowly, but don't respond as well, or respond with an error, then in template we have the error.hbs that can display a nice page with an error page. But we can master it by having a dedicated error page for, let's say, our recipes. And what is nice is that nested under recipes, you will have an error folder with a route.js. And in this route.js, you have setup controller that receives controller and model. Important to know is whenever there's an error page, the model is automatically the error. So here we send to backnag to report the error, and we set the error message to display in the template. So now we have this template where the user knows what's happening, that there's actually an error, and it's not like his browser that is not working, it's not his computer that is stuck, but there's actually an error with the backend. And you can see the error message and click back if you want to go back to authenticated. So we master it. As a master, we should anticipate one more thing, is when we create a form, we want to create a recipe, It might be as well that the backend might be a little bit slow to handle the request, the post request. And we don't want the user, our grandmother, for example, posting her recipes, to click again on the button because she thinks that the recipes is not posted yet. And here, what we could do is have an on-air value. If it's true, then it will display a message saying saving. And we can disable the click, so she will not click 2 times on the submit button. Here we can see in our controller, we set in submit recipes action, we set on air true as soon as we start this action, then we save the model, and as soon as it's saved, we disable the on air, so it's not stuck. So it's pretty good, right? But we could master it. How? By using Ember concurrency. As with Ember concurrency, there is no need for this on-air true and false manually set in our action. With Ember concurrency, you can just perform a task. It will try to save the model, and it will catch an error if there's an error. And the nice feature is, in our template, we can fetch the method is running to see if the task is actually running. So no need for this on-air true or false again. And we master it. So let's do a quick summary of what we have seen today. We have organized your own route. We've seen the importance of integration tests. We've seen how to mock your ideal payload and be friends again with your colleague from the backend. How to focus on the user experience and expect the unexpected. So we're kind of a chef now, right? Voila. So what's next? How to be a master. You can get involved in the community by meeting other Emberinos via GitHub, Slack, Ember meetups. And you have to know that a lot of open source projects are actually broken. So if you find something that doesn't work, you can probably help. Here is Sam and Miguel Camba in our offices in Show My Homework explaining lazy engines. It's a live session, it's on YouTube, and it was pretty helpful. You can as well read the official documentation because it's always better than just copy-pasting from Stack Overflow to actually see and read the official documentation because it will help you to keep up with changes in the framework. I advise you as well to read RFC and comment on them. It's a community effort. And give your voice so the framework can improve. Here's a module unification RFC where pretty much everyone from the community has tried to comment on them. And lastly, we can create an add-on and share it. Because the worst thing that will happen is that you are the only one using it. Here's an add-on that Miguel has created for Show My Homework, but actually a lot of people now are using it. So keep calm and cook on. Thank you.